this is it, guys. We are in the home stretch for the election. And get this, the 2020 election is now the most bet-on event in history. Already more than $260 million in wagers, wow, have been placed. That's more than the Kentucky Derby or the last Super Bowl. So what are the odds, by the way? Biden is favored to win at 65%. President Trump's chances are at almost 35%. Now, those odds are a little different than the latest polls, which, if you look at them, Biden is leading in all of them but one, with an average of Biden up by 7.5 points. But after 2016, and I totally understand this, a lot of you guys do not trust the polls, but experts say this time you can trust them because they've done a better job of reading the president's base, as well as the fact that there are fewer undecided voters this time around. I think we've all noticed that.
And also they want to keep their job.
Yes.
As a pollster.
Well, yeah, it's okay. We're going to get to that.
Yes,
DBL
let's
Nation, we want to know what you think. Do you trust the polls? Go to dblvote.com to weigh in. I already know Jeff has a strong stance on this, so let's start with you, Al, and then Jeff, jump in.
Jeff, Sam, I just want to know, how can you know? Because, like in 2016, let's say you did not vote because there wasn't a huge turnout, and then you saw how Trump was president, you go, oh my gosh, this is the best president ever. So you're going to show up in 2020. How do you account for that person? How do you account for the person that says, I voted in 2016 for Trump, and you know what, I just don't like what he did. You know, I'm not going to show up in 2020. I'm just not going to vote because I don't like Biden. How do you account for the no-shows?
What do you mean, how do you? Okay, so Jeff, jump in, and then I have a totally different stance than Al, but jump in.
Well, here, I don't believe in polls. I don't believe in surveys. I've never been polled. I've never been surveyed. So when you say you asked 1,000 people, it's so skewed because if you do that again, it's going to be a totally different number. I don't believe in the polls at all. I don't believe in any surveys. So, I mean, how are we supposed to know what's right or wrong? We're just going to have to wait and see what the turnout is.
No, 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 no. First of all, I'm getting comments as we speak because DBL Nation is already echoing both of your sentiments. But let me just say this. It is a science, okay, Al? So they account for every single variable. In fact, I might be a little biased because this was my major. Yes.
Polls?
No, sociology. Okay. So when you do polls and there's pollsters, really what's behind the polls and the pollsters are social scientists and scholars, and they account for every single variable. Now, I get it. 2016, I understand why a lot of you did not trust the polls. They completely were the exact opposite of what most pollsters said, right? But here's what's so important about polls, and I would even dare to say that polls are vital to our democracy because finally we get to hear from everyday people, as opposed to typically when you look at different cultures and different communities, you usually only hear the loudest voice, which usually is a celebrity, or maybe it's a politician, or maybe it's a specific news outlet, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. So if you really want to learn about the people and the base, you gotta trust the pollsters. It sounds like I convinced
Sam,
you. Yes, go ahead.
Do they account for people saying that they're not voting for Trump because they'll be berated by their families, their employees, and society in general? If someone came up to me with a microphone and they're like, who are you voting for? And I happen to be voting for Donald Trump, I'm not saying that I am, so everybody get your sticky fingers off the keyboard. What I'm saying is that if you ask somebody if they're voting for Donald Trump, they're going to say no because they don't want to get berated by all their... You could lose your job because of your support for Donald Trump.
That part is true.
Jeff's talking about the silent majority.
But the pollsters take that into account. These aren't just like blanket emails that they send out. Yes, they do. I studied this. Yes, they do. You actually have one-on-one interviews with people. I know it might be a little bit different because of the pandemic, but they take this very seriously. Typically, you would have a one-on-one interview with someone, and if they learned exactly what the case that you just presented, Jeff, they would then maybe not use you to be part of that sample. So all of that is actually, you guys are not giving social scientists any credit, and I'm not here for it.
And I mean, they had gotten most of the, I think
that's bias. If you're not using that example, that's bias.
That's not bias. They're non-biased. The one thing we can all count on when it comes to this democracy is that social scientists, when they conduct these studies or these polls, there is no bias. They'll take out certain situations where they know will not be representative of that community, right? So there's so many different variables.
Here's my scientific answer. You want my scientific answer? That's my scientific answer.
I can
Jeff, let me
tell
write
you
that
weren't
down.
a sociology major. Yes, I can tell that. I was. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the comments because you guys are definitely coming at me. Jeffrey, not this Jeff, but a different Jeffrey says, new poll, Sam, 14% of Americans believe that pink lemonade comes from pink lemons. Polls are stupid and too often wrong. Okay, I think that was Jeff that just said in that comment. Peter says, I trust the poll averages and trends. This year they'll be more accurate. Thank you, Peter. And Joe, I've never been polled in my life. Who the hell gets polled? Old lifetime political junkies. What? And then Larry says, the only poll I trust is my Polish nurse, Aga. Okay. Let's take a look at what DBL Nation has to say. Do you trust the polls? No, 83%. Okay, I'm in the minority. That's cool.